Before I begin, check out these key rings someone made me. They're coming in handy with all the Preludes around here. This Prelude has 4-wheel steering, and it's mostly stock except for the engine swap and a rear sway bar. The engine is a B20B from the CRV, and the transmission is from a 94-01 Integra. The engine is mounted using the One Fun Ride B-Series swap brackets. Right now it's just using the stock rubber mounts, except for the transmission mount that's the automatic to manual conversion mount from motiveforceperformance.com. The next modification that's going to happen to this car is getting the air conditioning working again. It's eventually going to get a traction bar, but for right now I'm going to try to fit the compressor with the stock front crossmember. That's going to require taking a chunk out of the crossmember to make room for the compressor. Here's the finished product. I also made some 1/4 inch thick spacers to space down the crossmember a little bit more as well. I was just inspecting the parts and I realized the bearing in this pulley, this tensioner pulley, is no good. Normally you can just buy you just buy the pulley with the bearing already inside of it, but if you can get the bearing out and see what the number is on the bearing, you can just buy a new bearing. So I think that's what I'm going to try to do. Typically, if you have the right size sockets, you'll be able to get these smaller bearings out with just regular vise. This is the AC bracket. If you see this point, this whole section here is normally used for an engine mount on like Civics, Integras, but we don't use this, so what I'm going to do, just to save some weight, so I'm just going to cut that whole section off. Now I'm going to pull all the AC parts so I can flush them. Alright, everything's been flushed out, it's ready to be reinstalled. Before I put the condenser in, I'm going to install these slim fans. There's just enough room left to squeeze the compressor in through that hole. Here's the last of the parts I'm gonna need. New AC belt. Bunch of fittings and most of the fittings in there are O-rings. The bearing for the pulley. Brand new Honda compressor mount bolts. Some oil. And the compressor. Cheapest compressor money could buy. Before I install the compressor, I'm going to drain the oil out of it, check that it's got the right amount, and replace some of it with this oil with the dye in it, just in case there's ever a leak. I got about 4 ounces of the oil out, but I don't know if you'll be able to see it. It's like a dark mass in the oil. Like some of the oil's dirty or something, so I think what I'm gonna do in this case, I'm just gonna dump all this majority of the compressor out, use some regular oil, and then just a little bit of this dye oil. So right now I got about 4.5 ounces of oil. I'm just gonna pour it back in, an even amount in each port. I'm gonna turn it counterclockwise by hand. I think it's supposed to be around 10 turns just to make sure it's all worked in there. Caps will stay on until I'm ready to actually attach the lines. Even with the crossmember clearance I made and the spacers, still got it loose right now. It's just too tight to be able to get the bolts in. I'm gonna install the pulley back on this thing before I go any further. That's the belts installed. All that's done now. Now I'm just gonna tighten down the compressor bolts. I already did the connector conversion, so all I gotta do is plug it in. Now I've got to weld these threads onto the suction fitting. Same thing with the discharge fitting, but I gotta weld up this hole, drill a hole in the top, then weld the threads on. Now I can finally build the lines. I'm gonna start with the discharge line. Runs from the smaller port on the compressor up to here. Okay, now I'm going to do the suction hose. I'm going to run it a little bit different than stock. I want to keep it kind of tucked because the stock line, if you remember, you know, it kind of comes up here. It's all hard line. And and it just gets in the way once you're doing engine swaps and things like that. So I'm going to try to tuck this one down, run it from a compressor down along the bottom of the radiator, under the battery tray, kind of above the mount but under the intake here, then up to the port up there. See, this is the suction one over here. Oops, around back there for some, to give it some length in case I need to take the pump loose. Runs on the bottom. Run out of the battery tray. Past the mount. Up in here. All the lines are installed, so now I'm going to put my gauges on it, pull a vacuum, see if it holds. Vacuum test is good. Now I'm going to charge it. I was just about to put the bumper back on. Look at this thing. It's barely holding on right now. So I'm gonna lay some, before it totally breaks off, I'm gonna lay some JB Weld right in here. Hopefully that keeps it in place. Alright, that's done for now. Now I'm gonna move on to working on the VTEC head. Since we eventually plan to go B20 VTEC on this car, I picked up this P72 head, and it recently we had it resurfaced, but I'm gonna do a little bit more work on it. Still got to get a bunch of parts to do the actual swap. Got a GSR intake manifold on the way, and then there's just a bunch of other little parts we gotta buy, including the actual kit. Okay, I'm going to do a bit of port cleanup on these ports. These are the exhaust. I don't know if you can see it. There's like a lip. It's pretty minor on all of them. You can't feel a little bump that's protruding out to the port. And take that down with the die grinder and all those. You can also see that I think this head got a little moist. You see the seats are pretty rusty. I use some let's lap the valves, try to clean that up. Other problems or things I gotta take care of is on the exhaust side I got a broken stud here, and just looking in here I can see that the threads are all gone, so I gotta drill this out. I'll probably install helicoils in these. That's done. Basically just slightly cleaned up the area where the factory machining was for the valve seat, where it meets up with the port. There's always a little slight lip there. Some are worse than others, but especially like right here on the intake, they're all smooth now. Alright, I'm cleaning up the valves now. I'm using the wire wheel on my bench grinder. Here's one I just finished. Here's the last exhaust valve I have to do. Now I'm going to use some valve grinding compound to clean up the valve seats a little bit. Now I'm going to hold the valves in place and fill the port with brake cleaner. And if there's a seating problem, it'll leak out. Alright, that's as far as I can take it for now. I've got some valve sim seals on the way. Helicoil kit for these screwed up holes. And also the intake manifold's going to be here soon. And before I put the head together, I'm going to check that the ports are reasonably well matched. If not, I'll grind them out. Yeah, that's it.